Meeting at 5:45 with an executive session. And so we have already opened the meeting, and we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, correspondence.
Yes, I had a few emails. One was a graduation date follow-up. One was asking some questions in regard to COVID updates. And my first ever, so as you know, we've been doing the Soaring Eagles program, and it was a program that I did in my prior district. It wasn't called Soaring Eagles. But for the first time ever, I had a student write an acceptance speech for their Soaring Eagle. So I'm hoping that he shares it. They'll be invited to the January board meeting, all the first semester Soaring Eagles, and so I hope he shares it because it was the cutest thing ever.
Okay. Agenda modification.
Yes. So there is a new 7B. The old 7B is now 7C. And there's an addition to 7C, substitute housekeeper.
Okay. At this time, we will have our first hearing of the public. Anyone wish to speak? Okay, this will be 5 minutes per person. Please start by stating your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Craig, 200 Cherrywood Circle, Geneva, Ohio. First of all, Mr. Lillie, I would like to recognize and thank you for your efforts in explaining our district's financial status last month during the board meeting. It was full of information, some of which I understood and some I did not. I feel confident in saying that most of our community appreciate your efforts, but most do not have a working knowledge of school finance. Therefore, most of what you said was lost on everyone. I am a board member with the Ashtabula County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I know that a DD board is not the same as a school board. However, it is very similar to a local school district in that we have pots of money to pull from. Those funds can only be used in certain ways, and you must report these transactions to a board and stakeholders in the community. It has been a very humbling and educational experience for me, one that I am very thankful for. Our board employs a CFO. Our CFO spends his time informing stakeholders well in advance of the decision-making so that good and timely decisions can be made. Each month, his presentation of the finances is in a very simple format. The first page includes our cash report, beginning balance, receipts, disbursements, and then a final balance. Each month is compared to the same month 1 year ago. We see a percentage of the budget that has been spent, how much will need to be spent by the end of the year. We then are provided with an expense analysis. This shows an itemization of each expense, prior year for comparison, subtotal month-to-date spent, then year-to-date spent, the percentage of the budget that is spent on that line item, and then a current balance. The revenue analysis looks very similar, where our funding comes from, whether it be local, state, or federal, our waiver assistance, which waiver funds are those required by the individual that is being provided with services, and the dollar amount that our county is responsible for to care for that person. This is followed by an itemized voucher report. A voucher is most often used in accounts payable to gain permission to pay an invoice versus a PO, which is asking for permission to buy something before you go out and get it. My question is there a better way to present the information that you gave to us last month? I'm not saying that the information presented was incorrect or that you spoke incorrectly, but if the general public has no idea what you were talking about, it's a waste of your time and theirs. They leave mad, frustrated, and feeling as if the wool is being pulled over their eyes again. Question number 2. I want to acknowledge that I did see and share the posting for 1 nurse and 2 counselors. We all know that posting a job and having applicants for said job are 2 very different things. I have personally forwarded the application to 15 different people. Has it been considered to obtain an MOA or a memorandum of agreement to change the requirement of having a Bachelor's of Science of Nursing to an RN? You are never going to find nurses to work for sub pay of $15 an hour. Tonight, I see that there's a proposal to raise sub pay for teachers, which is fantastic. Nurses are part of GATA. I don't think a lot of people know that, and I know that job security is of the utmost importance to any union. In light of the current pandemic, employee shortages, and just an overall struggle to get anyone to work, this might be a short-term solution. Remembering that a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing can train others, but however, those that have been trained cannot train another aide, secretary, or staff member. My hope would be that we could obtain 2 with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and maybe hire some other part-time RNs that would be able to swing between buildings. Keep our educational aides with the students that they are legally required to serve and give our secretaries a break. I cannot even imagine their stress level. Question number 3, in regards to bus drivers. I have had several people tell me that they have applied for bus driving positions. They have their CDL and bus endorsement. They have never been called. Not for an interview, a conversation, or anything. I'm hoping that this isn't the case, as we all see the bus splits, double and sometimes triple routes on our drivers. Weather will continue to get worse, hoping that there's a plan in place, and was wondering if you could provide any clarity on that. Number 4, an ink shortage. My daughter typed a paper for history on her Chromebook yesterday. During study hall, wanted to print it so that I could proofread it for her while she cheered at her basketball game. There's no ink. There's no ink anywhere. I'm not quite sure if it's like a supply issue or if it's a PO issue, but I didn't know if there's anything as a community that we could do to help solve that issue.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. The last but certainly not least, this past week has brought to my attention there was a threat of a student bringing a gun to the middle school. I saw that it was investigated and it was found not to be of concern, but there was no robocall, and I was just curious as to why. I will close by stating that I've asked many questions over the past 3 months. Many are left unanswered. We've had job descriptions read to us, and I've been told more than once that you are one of 5. However, your responsibility as one of the 5 is to find answers to questions that have been posed at these meetings. Finding answers does not mean asking just Dr. Treharn or Mr. Lillie. You have had countless concerns and problems brought to your attention publicly over the last 3 months. In October, you could say that you didn't know and were not aware. You are no longer able to say that. It is time to do work. It's time to investigate. It's time to lead. That is something that each of you can do as one of 5, and it should be in all of your job descriptions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angie Myers, and I live at 795 Red Oak Lane. I do have 3 children in the district, but tonight I'm here as a 5th grade teacher at Geneva R. Spencer. I would like to discuss the 2 offices that were moved from the board office into GPS. I understand with splitting of the assistant superintendent's job into 2 positions, and with the lack of space, in addition to the current state of our board office, that it was necessary to find these 2 women a different home. My hope is that this is a temporary change. I did not see offices that would house the special education director and her secretary in the plans when you were going to renovate the media center. And that is why I'm here tonight. We lost both of our conference rooms to house these offices. Our office conference room was used for meetings such as team meetings, parent meetings, and IEP meetings. We now hold our IEP meetings in our music room, which is at the very end of our main hall. Parents and families now walk past students who are headed to specials, such as such as library and gym, classes who are in the cafeteria, going to recess, and classes who are standing in the hallway waiting to use the restroom. Our OT and PT therapists use the music room during art week because they cannot use the art room. So on Tuesdays, when our IEP meetings are being held there, we are holding OT and PT services in the hallway. If they are lucky to find an intervention room that they can borrow for that time, then they do so. During COVID, we also used the conference room as our isolation room for children who had fevers, to keep them separated from kids who might come down, who just had accidents or just wasn't feeling well but had no COVID symptoms. Now we no longer have that space. So all of the children are put together in our small nurses room. Our library conference room was previously used as our maker space, which was created and run by teachers in our building. A makerspace is a place where children can do hands-on learning. It helps with critical thinking skills and can even boost self-confidence. Our wonderful PTO families donated Legos and Connects, and our very generous PTO paid for supplies such as origami paper, instructional books, and craft supplies for our monthly and our holiday crafts. All of the materials were teacher materials, and we had STEM activities, such as science exploration, we had Lego tables, we had math centers like Connect 4, pattern blocks, mega tiles, and we had quiet activities that could be done inside the library, such as chess and checkers. Playing board games is not something that a lot of our kids do with all the technology today. So this also provided them a chance to learn turn taking and patience and rule following. You may be asking, why would we give up two such valuable spaces as offices? The answer is that we have no extra, no wasted or unused space in our building. Every room in our building is being used. We are in the process. You posted a position to get a new counselor. And that is wonderful news because we desperately need a new counselor. But the room that belonged to the counselor previously is now being used by our Right at School program, our school psychologist when she tests, and our ESOL teacher. The ESOL teacher previously had shared our makerspace in the library because he's not there full time. So hopefully we can fill that counselor position soon, but that means that these three people, programs, will have to find a new home within our building. Our building is already very crowded. We have many needs and could use more staff. We don't have enough subs, we haven't been able to fill all of our positions, and yet our building is filled. When they built them, they did not plan on all-day, everyday kindergarten. We have that now, so that lost 2 classrooms that wasn't planned on.
30
we are
seconds
simply
remaining.
overcrowded. I simply do not feel that district-level administration offices should be taking up our valuable and very limited space within our school buildings. I hope that the new plans for our board office, that both of these offices will find a new, a permanent, and more appropriate home. Thank you.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
Move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Financial report.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Approval of invoices.
Move. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. Informational items.
You have the investment report, and you see a donation reported again from Custom Inc., LLC, in Virginia to the Denny Noble Outstanding Essay Award.
Okay, legislative report.
Thank you. In the last month, hearings and testimonies were held on the following topics: property valuation, complaint and countercomplaint, elimination of the August elections, career advising policies, and cameras on buses to identify drivers that illegally pass a stop school bus. Senate Bill 229 was signed into law today by the governor. This bill was enacted as an emergency, so it takes effect immediately. The bill does a number of things, and I'll highlight a few of them for you. It temporarily extends the deadline to April 30th, 2022 for a school district to submit a blended learning model to the ODE for the 21-22 school year. It requires each district to complete and submit within 90 days a remediation plan to address the learning loss students experienced from the pandemic, and permits school districts to use an already submitted extended learning plan or local use funds plan to satisfy the remediation plan. It permits a school district to adopt a resolution that provides remote learning to a student whose parent requests remote learning. It exempts districts from retaining a student under the third grade reading guarantee for the 21-22 school year, but it requires the district to consult with the parent on the decision of a principal and reading teacher as to whether the student should be retained. It prohibits the use of the chronic absenteeism measure on the state report card for the 21-22 school year. It requires a public school to integrate the study of economic and financial literacy into one or more existing social studies credits or into the content of another class for students graduating between 2022 and 2025. And it makes a change to the funding base used to determine state funding to an educational service center. As I said, there are a number of other things that that bill does do as well. In early December, House Bill 169 was sent to the governor for his approval. This bill provides state appropriation authority for schools to receive the funding provided by Congress through Esser Funds in response to the pandemic. Those appropriation provisions would take effect immediately. The General Assembly also sent House Bill 29 to the governor for his approval. The bill would legalize, regulate, and tax sports gaming. The bill would prohibit betting on any sport or athletic event if a player is under the age of 18. Additionally, the bill would require that 98% of the profits would be used for K-12 education. And finally, the General Assembly sent House Bill 122 to the governor for his approval. The bill would establish and modify requirements regarding the provision of telehealth services of school psychologists, speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, occupational assistants, behavior analysts, and physical therapy assistants. Last month, we had a community member that spoke that took issue with our notation on the agenda that this meeting is a meeting in public and not a public community meeting. She said that the Sunshine Law and the Open Meetings Act calls our meeting a, quote, public meeting of the Board of Education, not a meeting in public, end quote. So I thought I'd research this topic and provide some insight and facts as to what I found on this. So I was able to go to the Ohio Open Meetings Act website. It's hosted on the Ohio Attorney General's website. And the Open Meeting Act requires public bodies in Ohio to take official action, conduct deliberations, and discuss the public business in open meetings where the public may attend and observe. The school board is defined as a public body. The Act defines a meeting as a prearranged gathering of a majority of the members of a public body for the purpose of discussing public business. The Act declares all meetings of a public body to be public meetings open to the public at all times. This is what I think that speaker was talking about when she mentioned that this was actually a public meeting. The Open Meetings Act, however, does not provide attendees the right to be heard at the meetings. To that point, according to an Ohio School Boards Association attorney, school board meetings are not a community forum, which is defined as an open exchange of ideas, information, and feedback among community members, because the community is not entitled to speak. It is a, quote, a meeting of and for the board. The public has a right to hear but not to be heard, end quote. School board meetings fall under a traditional or open public forum because they are open to the public, and the board has created an open forum by allowing the public to participate. The board can determine whether to allow public participation at all, but once the board opens the meetings to public participation, as we do, they become open public forums. But again, not community forums, because those would allow for the engagement throughout the entire meeting of the public. So there are some facts about the open meeting law. And finally, in recently introduced legislation, we've got House Bill 489 to prohibit a school from requiring a student or employee who objects to certain vaccines and other treatments based on reasons of conscience, including religious convictions, from receiving a vaccine or treatment. House Bill 494 to authorize a municipal corporation, county, or township to establish a school-adjacent speed zone on any street or highway within a half a mile of certain schools. House Bill 497 to modify the English Language Arts Assessment to be administered once in the third grade and to eliminate retention under the third grade reading guarantee. House Bill 501 to authorize school districts to levy property taxes for school resource officer services, among other changes. And finally, Senate Bill 270 to specifically require the Director of Transportation to notify any school located within a half mile of a proposed additional state highway or significant change to an existing state highway that will be impacted by the additional highway or significant change. And this is similar to House Bill 465, which I reported on last month. So this is a similar bill raised in the Senate. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. For the ATEC report, this is the final week of classes at ATEC, and I'm not going to be going to an ATEC board meeting until Monday. So I have a very short report. That's it. Report of the superintendent.
Do you want to read the first one?
The members of the, yeah, okay. Members of the Geneva's Image Show Choir, under the direction of Michelle Mather, will give a short holiday performance. Excuse me. Cheer, Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Geneva's Image. Our administrators will be providing a brief report.
Yes, first, I also wanted to thank the Geneva Image for their performance. This was the second time that I got to see them, and they were just as good as the first time. So I certainly thank them for coming out this evening for us to see them. Starting our administrative reports this evening will be Mr. Liebert.
Good evening. It's a tough act to follow. It seems like I always follow the tough acts. So I apologize. The district held its monthly DLT meeting today from 9 to 1 at the high school. We have members from all buildings in central office. We revisited the Ohio improvement process, had the building principals report out on their BLT implementation, had teachers research and present instructional strategies, and worked on the district focus plan. After the winter break, I will have meetings with SESIC, which is the Curriculum and Education Standards Advising Committee, and forming a gifted committee to look at protocols for gifted identification placement, WEPs and WAP improvements, as well as examine up-to-date, relevant, research-based instruction for gifted identified students, and provide HQ, or high-quality professional development for teachers in the areas of gifted instruction. Excuse me. The fall third grade ELA assessment results are in and uploaded to our student information system. The graph below on your paper, or your handout, shows the percentage of students who met the third grade reading guarantee promotion rate for each of our elementary buildings. The students needed a 683 on the scale score and a 46 on the reading sub-score to meet that promotion score. And Austinburg had 80%, Cork 70%, GPS 40%, and as a district we had a 63.3%. The graphs that are attached to the rest of the packet will show you a percent of the students proficient in ELA, but that number is not the same as the percent of students who met the third grade reading guarantee promotion. I think that's important to know. And the other graphs, you'll see that there are 5 items that students perform the best on, 5 items that the students perform the worst on, reading informational text, reading literary text, writing, and writing dimensions. And that's really all I have for now. I don't want to go through all those graphs individually with you, but they're all there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us. But thank you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and be safe.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Porcello.
All right, good evening. I wanted to address 504s today. I know at the last board meeting, which I wasn't at, a community member did come and mention 504s. So I thought I would bring a little bit of information about that for our district and just overall, because they're not something that a lot of people know a lot about. So Geneva Schools has 132 students on a 504 plan. I did break that down by school for you. I'm not going to break that down for everybody else. As of today, 87 504 meetings have happened across the district, compared to 333 special ed meetings. So prior to my beginning this job, intervention specialists manned the 504s. That's a lot of meetings for them. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is a civil rights statute that protects persons with disabilities from discrimination. So under Section 504, school districts are required to make sure that their programs are accessible by students with disabilities. And this is different from an IEP in that the students don't have to have one of 13 categories of disabilities. Later on in the document that I provided you, it gives you ideas of things that would fall under Section 504.
Another important part is that all students that qualify for an IEP under IDEA qualify to be covered under Section 504, but it does not work the other direction. Section 504 it covers people from birth till death. You are expected to be free from discrimination under that act. IDEA Part B covers students from ages 3 to 21. Part C, birth to 3. Title I, which is often confused with Section 504 or an IEP, is just funding provided by the federal government for education of students that are achieving poorly. Section 504 does not provide any funding to schools. It's just a requirement for us. Schools don't receive any funding. It's a general education program and should be run by general education teachers and staff mostly associated with the general population in the schools. It provides accommodations to work and setting, but it does not provide any modifications. And I showed the difference between accommodations. Accommodations are changes in how a student might learn material. For example, changes in the timing, formatting, setting, schedule, the way they respond, how it's presented, any combination of those. Where a modification actually changes what the student is learning. So it's a difference in the standard. For a team for a 504 meeting, the Department of Civil Rights says that it's recommended to have at least one of the student's teachers and or counselors, a building administrator, and a person that's knowledgeable about the student's disability on their team. The case manager for 504 is responsible for communicating the plan to all necessary staff, monitoring the implementation, reporting of successes for the team at an annual meeting, and participating in any other meetings that come associated with that 504. These evaluations happen every 3 years. It's not mandated that they do. It's best practice that every 3 years there's a reevaluation associated with the 504. A plan is developed and reviewed annually, but meetings can come up at any time if you feel that there needs to be a change or somebody requests. And then when it's implemented, it's important that you make sure it's implemented as it's described on the plan, that failure to comply with anything on the plan can result in personal liability, and it's a direct civil rights violation if you decide that you're not going to comply with the plan. There's a lot more information in what I gave you. Feel free, if you have any questions, to direct them my way. With regards to switching who was monitoring the plans within the district, I did it, as I said, because it's not a special ed document. It's not a special ed area. And I did offer any knowledge that I had and any training available. Office of Civil Rights, I've been in close contact with Vince Cheverine there. They do not have any specific training for writing or maintaining 504s. It's just basic information that's out there. But every time I find something that's worthwhile, I do share it with those that are writing and implementing the 504s. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mr. Weatherholt.
Thought I had more time. I actually have a couple things that I wanted to go over. Last month, I gave you guys a lot of data on discipline and things that were going on in the building that we went over. It was over a 3-year period and things of concern that we were starting to have. What I didn't do is talk about next steps. Where are we going from here? What are we looking at and how can we work through this problem? So I provided you with a little more information on that topic. The data is great, and data is great to make decisions and all that, but if you don't use it to drive your decision-making process, what good is it? So the first thing I did when we went back is I put together a team of teachers, including counselors, the superintendent was involved, other teachers, 4 or 5 teachers, the resource officer, and we had a meeting. But before we did that, I went into a classroom and I asked them a couple questions. The first thing I asked them is I apologized to them and said, we brought you back into a building, we put you in a chair, we told you to write us an essay, and we didn't ask how you felt. So my first question was, how do you feel about being back in school? My second question was, we're having a lot of problems in the building with discipline and other things going on in the bathrooms, so on and so forth. Why is
Next is Mr. Riley.
So I hope we're not going to have Mr. Weatherholt sing some ACDC. First off, happy holidays, everybody. It's hard to believe that the weather's 50 degrees outside and we are about a week and a half away from Santa Claus showing up. So when we returned back from the Thanksgiving break, the hustle and bustle of the season really hit full stride with the middle school. The first week back on that Friday, we had the 8th grade reality day experience. That was where students, with the support of many of the local businesses, even Mrs. Fisher, they were roaming around the building, roaming around the various stations and balancing a budget, dealing with everything from clothing allowances to mortgages, to car insurances, to food, to anything that we would typically have in utilities, to anything we would typically have in our monthly expenses. I tried really hard to get the students to purchase the Metzler, to purchase the Corvette Stingray, but when they had that about $1,200 a month sticker price, that was more than the houses they were buying. They turned away from that. So I tried all day long, it just didn't work. We also had the band and choir concerts just performed here recently in the last week and a half. They did a fantastic job. To my understanding, it was the first choir performance that was actually held in the middle school. I did not know that until Mrs. Mather announced that, so that was kind of neat to see how they performed, and the students did just an absolutely phenomenal job. And our 2 new directors in the band program did just an outstanding job getting the students prepared to where they were. So it was a very enjoyable evening. The middle school parent group that we're still trying to work towards, we had our second meeting just about a week ago. They are excited to continue working with the staff and to support the students in the building. Our next meeting is on January, I believe it's January 13th. And they are trying to maybe do a book fair at the middle school, which they're excited about. They thought they all had experience at the elementary level doing a book fair, and they thought that was easy for them, kind of a nice little fundraiser, and the students would be knowledgeable of it. So I think we're going to try to do that sometime in February over Parent-Teacher Conference Week there. Listed the litany of things that the Student Council has been involved in since we got back. Obviously, they helped out with the Stuff the Bus program. That was that district-wide competition. In a very similar manner what the high school did, they made some very generous donations to families that were in need in the total amount of $450 to help cover some student costs of children that were ages 8, 10, and 13, along with a $300 Walmart gift card so that the family could purchase some foods over the holiday break. We have our Reindeer Games coming up on Friday. Everybody on the board is invited to attend, and all the administrators as well. If you want to see either me or Mr. Mollahan is going to be in a presence of some sort. I don't know what that's going to look like. That's a secret. It's a secret, so we won't tell what we're going to do. So at least we'll get some quiet time for as long as we're in that box, I guess. But anyway, so Reindeer Games are coming up next week. They've been working through the Holiday Spirit Week, door decorating contest, in which I've included some pictures of some of the doors that we've got in the building for your pleasure. And also Mrs. Hazler is working with a readathon with the students that will take place once we come back from break. 8th grade science did an 8-drop challenge. I included some photos of that. They initially dropped them from 8-foot lockers down to the ground in a little vessel that they had created. Many survived, but when they went up to the second floor, it started dropping them down 16, 18 feet. Some still made it, and there's even a picture of one that just did not make it. And that student had quite a bit of an interesting job trying to clean up an egg yolk off of the mat. Anyhow, enrollment is there as usual. We've also got some upcoming events that are listed there. I want to acknowledge the journalism class and the students for working on the Talon newspaper. I provided a copy for each one of you for your reading pleasure. I gotta tell you, in my career, when they put this on my desk, this was phenomenal. I have not seen anything like this anywhere I've ever been, especially at the middle school level. So kudos. I listed all the names of the students there as well as Mrs. Hazley for doing that. Absolutely phenomenal. And last but not least, I'd like to compliment Mr. Clue and Mr. Mirabel, our 8th grade science teachers, on just a wonderful activity, not only with the egg drop, but they're doing some balloon race cars as they talk about motion and energy and what that all does. So very, very busy here at the middle school level. So again, thank you. And again, happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Guston.
On my way. I'm trying to guess where to go. Good evening, everyone. Yes, hard to believe it's mid-December already. So basically what you have in front of you are the events at GPS over the last couple weeks. Last week, our wonderful PTO moms put together our Santa shop that our students love to go through. Any of you that have had elementary school children, kids love to get money. They love to go buy for all their friends and family, maybe themselves a little. The other kids in the building like to come and volunteer and help everyone shop and pick out presents and wrap. So it was definitely a good time for everyone. Our PTO also donates raffle tickets to any student in the school. And they have a chance to win prizes, and we even had a Grinch show up this year. A very friendly Grinch with an anti-bullying campaign, so the Grinch is always welcome at GPS. We did do one of our 3 lockdown drills of the year last week. Mrs. Porcello did help me with that, and checking our doorways and making sure that everyone was hidden. And we even opened a few doors to see that our Alice procedures were firmly in place, with a teacher standing behind the door with a baseball bat and children screaming very loudly behind that door. So we got through drill number 1. We also continue to give to charitable causes. In November, like I said, we always give to the Geneva Food Pantry and Toys for Tots. And then we did the countywide competition. We finalized that last Friday and into Saturday for Feed Our Vets and Operation Toy Soldier. So our families and our students are always very generous, as is our staff. We did do our building leadership team meeting last week. Mr. Liebert met with us previously to look at our conduct indicators from the spring scores last year. And we did go over those at our meeting last week. And then from there, we looked at next steps of what we're going to do with those results. And then Monday this week, we actually did our building spelling bee. Gianna Alds is our building rep. She's a 4th grader, so she's going to actually compete next month at Geneva Middle School with 8th graders. 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th graders all get to compete. So she's going to represent us on the 11th. 5th grader Dominic Webb was our alternate. And a big thank you to Mr. Liebert and Dr. Treharn. They were our guest judges. Mrs. Ramsey served as our pronouncer. And Mr. Burgard was our videographer, since we couldn't even have all 6 sections of 4th and 5th grade in the cafeteria because of the 3 feet distancing. So Mr. Burgard, when the GIs were with us, I forgot to mention that, thank you GIs were with us last week. We couldn't even have everyone in the gym for that, so Mr. Burgard did a live stream out, and the teachers could click on the link and the students could watch in the classroom. And that's the exact same thing we did with the spelling bee. So that is one good technology integration that we've come to adapt to with COVID. And then on Monday, we took our results from our BLT meeting the following week, and we presented it out in a staff/teacher-based team meeting. We looked at our scores in English language arts, and we looked at the state rubrics that they have for writing. And then from there, we started to look at kind of making the rubrics more student-friendly, because right now when you look at anything from ODE, sometimes it's not real student-friendly. So we're trying to make the language more student-friendly so that our students can score better on our English language arts tests. And we're also looking at doing a template that the kids can follow to help them kind of formulate their responses. Because oftentimes, kids really struggle on what to write, how to write, even though they kind of have in their mind what they want to write, it just helps to kind of have something in front of them to use. So we're going to be using kind of a universal template that we're working on right now that we look to finalize when we get back from break. And then tomorrow we have our 3rd and 4th grade holiday program. It will be during the day. 3rd grade will be at 1 o'clock and 4th grade will be at 2 o'clock. So a big thank you to Mrs. Stowell and our maintenance department for making sure that we are all set up with our risers where they need to be. Because remember, at GPS, we still have to distance at lunch, and we do use part of our gym each day to make that happen between the gym and the cafeteria. So that's where we're at right now for December. It's the funnest time of year at elementary school, that's for sure. Thank you.
And next we have Mrs. Doherty, who will be sharing out for both herself and Mrs. Brzenko.
It's tough following all you guys because you're saying, I'm sitting here going, oh, I have to talk about that too, and I have to talk about that too. Because we have been doing a lot, that's the theme I think you've been hearing tonight. And on my report, I'll do mine first and then Mrs. Brzenko's next. There are, first off, some things just to piggyback on, especially everything Mrs. Gustin said. Our PTO has been busy. They've sponsored Santa Shop. This week, I think we tried to do everything in the very last week because, like Mr. Riley said, it just caught up on us, this holiday season. So we had Santa Shop going on. We had our 3rd and 4th grade Elvis impersonator concert in which Hudson Simmons in grade 4 was an excellent Elvis impersonator. And so the parents loved that. We had a great turnout. We did distance everybody. So that's always nice to have and see all the parents there and somewhat getting back to normal again. I think that's the other theme we're hearing tonight. Santa Shop is going on. I don't think they can fit any more items for the kids to shop with in one room, and it's so cute at the end of the day when I'm getting them in their cars. They're like, don't look to their parents. So it's been fun, and it's also nice to have all the volunteers back in as well. So they've been working really hard, that PTO. We're also having Spirit Week going on this week as well, so we've been having a lot of fun. On my report, academic, everybody's been talking about, we had our building leadership team meeting as well. And it's all flowing into place with our DLT, as Mr. Liebert had spoke about today. We did have a very productive meeting, I feel, which has really been connecting all of us to focus on, especially writing. And so we spent time to look at release test items and our data and how we are, answering some of these questions. So our BLT is going forward with that as well, but really looking at that writing process as well as the key factor. And stamina. Stamina was the word for us today, and so we're going to work on that too, especially with those extended response questions. Our community area stuffed bus, helping our veterans, our students did a fabulous job, and I do have to commend Mrs. Eva Longar. She's a longtime family member of the core community. She just, all I said was, we want that trophy, and she just went to town on it. And so she came in and she talked to the kids and got them motivated, and they really enjoyed it. It's so nice to bring that community service back into the building because let me tell you, all of the kids in Geneva do such an excellent job of that. I think I report that all the time, and so it's just very nice to have that back, and they feel so good about themselves as well. They walk by all the stuff they donate, go, oh gosh, that's really, so that was exciting too. So we did stuff the bus. The class that donated the most will receive a class party. Our PTO said a class of their choice. I said, okay, anything but a pool party. We don't want to have that, but so anyway, we got to keep laughing. So then, also we're involved in the community Christmas card, and I'm sure many of you have heard about that. So we're collecting change, any change. The kids are bringing that in. And because that is a very worthy cause, especially for our local area. And I think promoting that the veterans, the stuff the bus went to our local county, and as well as the community Christmas card, it really makes a big difference. People are really right there to help out. So it's, again, I can't talk about that enough, just watching the kids, they just love doing that and helping. And of course, Mrs. Stowell had our concert that I spoke about. She really works hard, traveling from all 3 buildings, trying to get everybody organized. We had some real actors this year, so it was a very good program for both 3rd and 4th grade. And they really didn't have a lot of time to put it together, but they did an excellent job. And she does pick programs that have a theme, and this theme was really about, you know, not bullying, promoting anti-bullying, so that had a little message in it as well. And we had the high school and the GIs visit our building, just like everybody else. And it's so nice because Mrs. Mather always asks how many are Corkers, and they raise their hand. And Gabby, who was up here tonight, she said, I remember sitting in there, and I just said, I'm going to be a GI, and I'm going to sing. And you hear the kids talking about that when they leave after the performance. So it's so important, I think, for us to have that. And it gives them, you know, something to look forward to. Our classroom news, I just gave you some classroom news here, what's happening. Teachers love to share out. Mrs. Jackham's 3rd grade, they're working on fact family houses. They're actually building houses. They're looking at their AR leveled books, working on sandwich book reports. Again, that's going to be another factor we're looking into with our BLT, keeping our strategies consistent on our writing process. And they're writing haiku poems and following the formula for that. There's more information on the back there. And following patterns and writing that poetry. 1st grade read Gifts to the Heart together, and they brainstormed ways that they could be a gift to others rather than what others could buy for them. Then they wrote about how they could be a gift to others not only at Christmas time, but throughout the year. So that theme is going on definitely throughout the year. And 5th graders are conducting 2 research report activities. The first is on holiday traditions around the world, learning about how people of different countries celebrate. And then they're going to do a virtual class book to report their findings. They've been working on that. They're sharing that out now. And then the second one is a research activity centering on contributions from an inventor scientist and its impact on society, and then creating an ugly Christmas sweater, so trying to pull all that in together. So we do appreciate all their hard work in the classroom. So that's a lot. I'm sure I forgot a lot of things to report going on, but you're more than welcome to come out and visit. I know we had Mrs. Metzler there for our Stuff the Bus, and she politely supported us, so it was very nice to see her. So that's what's happening at Cork, and again, I'm sure I forgot a lot. Austenburg, there's been a lot going on again at that school as well. To start off the month, AESA organized a wonderful holiday shop for all students to come and shop for their family and friends. There were many volunteers that helped organize and or worked at the event. Holiday music was playing and the gym and hallways were decorated for the season. Students were excited to pick out gifts, eat popcorn and candy canes. They ended the week with a beautiful concert performed by Geneva Image on December 9th, and I think the high school choir. Austenburg Elementary participated in Stuff the Bus and brought in over 2,300 items. And I think Dr. Treharn counted every single one of them. The 5th grade students counted the items and boxed everything up for the bus to take to Ashtabula. And thank you to all the families in Geneva that helped out with this project. 3rd and 4th graders, again, same thing, performed at the Elvis Impersonator for their families on December 14th. And they had fun, and the families were very excited to be there, just like I said, for Cork as well. Last year, we did make a virtual concert and put it on social media for the families. That was a cute idea. Mrs. Stowell came up with that, but it was so much nicer to be there in person. And they're ending the week with our winter parties. Teachers have many festive activities planned, and the students are ready for holiday fun. And then she wanted to share, lastly, thank you, Mr. Dana, for your dedication and service to the Geneva Area City Schools. Best wishes on your next adventure. We will miss you. So thank you for all that you've done for us at all of our buildings in Geneva. We do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I recommend a motion to accept the following new revised or replacement policies for board adoption. These are policies that were passed out last month.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the following students as having met the requirements for early graduation for the 21-22 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just wanted to say I very much appreciate the letters that were attached to each one of these, and to know what our students are doing. I really appreciate that, so thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
I recommend the board approve the following resolution relative to the employment of substitute teachers.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a couple comments on this. I believe Ms. Metzler has commented on this before in her legislative report, but this comes from Senate Bill 1, which allows a lot more flexibility when it comes to substitute teachers and the requirements to be a substitute teacher. Of course, we know these sub shortages that we've experienced, just like many other school districts. So we are passing a resolution to take advantage of this flexibility. We are also adding some additional requirements because the Senate bill requirements are pretty minimal. Their requirements are simply that you don't need to hold a post-secondary degree, and you must be of good moral character and complete a criminal background check. So we will be adding, again, some additional requirements, one of which is being interviewed by our administrators so that we make sure that we are getting good candidates and substitutes in the classrooms with our students.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend that substitute teacher pay be increased to $125 per day effective January 3, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So I had looked into the other sub rates, and actually a teacher had sent me some that she was aware of from counties outside of Ashtabula County, or districts outside of Ashtabula County. And the rate ranged on the low end from $85 a day to the high end of $125 a day. Although I was just made aware that a district in Ashtabula County has raised theirs to $285 a day. We are not going there, but we are improving to $125 a day, so hopefully that will help. Aside from that one district, outside of our county, there were 6 that were lower than our rate, 1 that was the same, and 2 that were higher. And inside of our county, there was 1 that was lower, 3 that were the same, and 3 were higher than what we were. So going to 125, we will be at the top rate with everyone, with the exception of the one who recently raised their rate.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Okay, item 7, I recommend the following personnel actions for contract year 21-22.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Our thanks to Mr. Ellis for 23 years in service, so thank you very much.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. I recommend the board approve the following volunteer coaches for the 21-22 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
The board will need to determine a date, time, and place for the 2022 organizational meeting. President Pro Tem for the organizational meeting will need to be appointed. Well, the date of January 5th has come up.
What time?
7?
7? Will that work for you, Marty? Sure. Will January 5th work for you? Yeah. Amber?
Yeah.
Okay, and at the media center? Or do we want to?
Wherever you would like. Either is fine.
Yeah, prior to this, it was held at the board office.
Many times, yes.
Yes, so,
But that's not really suitable right now. To have it at 135 South Eagle Street.
right,
Okay.
right, so we can't do it at the old administration building, so I think the media center should suffice. And I nominate Amber Metzler to be the president pro tem.
I second.
Discussion? Do we need a roll call?
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Okay. Other.
Well, this is my last meeting, so if you don't mind, I'll take a few moments. You know, I've had the pleasure to work with just a lot of great people. Woo! Okay? Yeah, it's okay. I got it here. It's fine. But, you know, I wanted to just mention a few of them. Whenever you start listening names, you know, you are in danger of forgetting someone. But started off working with Ford Beam, with David Foote, Richard Trice, Ed Brashear, fantastic, you know, individuals. But I wanted to talk about the persons who are on the board here now. So Mrs. Ortiz, I just want to say, you know, thank you. You know, thank you for the business experience that you bring here to the board, and also your accounting expertise. You know, we've relied on you for that for so many years. So thank you, Mr. Arndt, our Sergeant Major. We haven't always agreed with one another on policy decisions, but we've never been you know, disagreeable. And I just want to say I appreciate you so very much in what you bring here to the board. Mrs. Metzler, our newest board member, so we always give the new assignments to the newest board member, so be aware of this here, Marty. I just appreciate your passion for the schools and for going to each one of the schools and doing your tours and listening to our teachers. It's a great thing that we need here on the communication aspect. I want to go to our Madam President here, who has more names than I can remember. You know, Sally, Sarah, Caddy, Onassis, you know, Fisher. I don't remember, but she has such a passion here for our kids, and I so much appreciate the work that she does teaching Spencerian script, keeping that history here alive, and going in and reading here with our young children. And you know, there's a lot that the board does behind the scenes that no one sees or recognize. And I just want to say, you know, just how much I you know, appreciate all of you. Plus the fact of the incredible spelling skills that all of you have, and also the dancing skills that all of you have showed at prior. I just want to say, absolutely outstanding. We have a great administrative staff. These reports that you've presented, these, you know, the newspaper here from the middle school, I mean, they're outstanding. And the new thing that we've done here about having monthly reports, it's fantastic. It's great here for the board. It's also great here for the general public. I love that communication. Mr. Lillie, best in the business. Thank you. You know, thank you. And in addition to your duties here, you know, as treasurer, the work that you did on the school funding program, you know, on your own time, driving down to Columbus, I mean, how many miles, were put on your vehicle from which to do that. And I just want to say thank you, and just what an outstanding effort you've done, not only here for our district, but also for students here around the state. You're just fantastic, and we appreciate you. And I also appreciate, I just want to say, given your reports, the financial reports, there is a lot of data. But I think one of the things that the board has done is to try to make that as transparent as possible, and also having it available online. This is a big organization, and I thank you so very much for your attention to detail. And I think in all of the reports that we have here on the minutes that you presented to me in eight years, I found one spelling mistake, I think, in 8 years. So we'll forgive you for that. Worked with some great superintendents, so between Mary and Eric and Dr. Terri. Dr. Terri, thank you. You came into this district here. We were hoping to have things on a better plane for you when you started, and I apologize that wasn't done, but you are absolutely the right person for the job and where it is that this district is at and where it is going, and so thank you so very much. I want to thank our staff and our teachers. Phenomenal. I just want to say this, phenomenal. We look at society and the troubles that we face as a society, and how we always go to our staff and to our teachers that are fulfilling critical needs here for our students. And I hope you recognize how much it is that all of us here on the board, how much that we appreciate you. It's a tough job, even more difficult when you're having to deal with challenges such as budget cuts and COVID. But we appreciate you so very, very much. And what I want to do is also talk about here our students. We have great kids. The GIs here, amazing. I always love it when we go to graduation, we see the band and the choir. I mean, it's amazing. And then to get these reports here about the community service. Thank you. Thank you to our kids here. I mean, when you're looking at making, future generations, awesome. When I joined the board 8 years ago, we were facing several challenges, and I want to focus here on a team effort. I think it was said earlier here, thank you for my dedication and my service. None of us do this on our own. None of us. 8 years ago, when I looked at the 5-year forecast, there was a lot of red here in it. We've passed together with our community the first operating levy since, 1993, the new monies? First time. And how did we do that? Us together, going door to door, going to community meetings, working with our community here from which to get that passed. Spire. Took a lot of hits here on that. This board took a lot of hits. There were a lot of late nights here with respect to that. I think the decisions that this board made and this community made, again, as a team, I think when you look at the success that's occurring here on I-90 and on State Route 534, the future looks very bright. And the work that this group here did on that, and that this community did here on that, thank you. Let's talk about the CRO, Officer Cooper. Thank you. A partnership, Geneva Police Department here and the schools, to be able to find a way here from which to be able to enhance security here in the area. And I can't also help but thank the PTOs, the support that they provide, and the door stops that they help to pay and raise the money for throughout all of our schools. Again, a community coming together to make that happen. The one-to-one match with students and the Chromebooks, yeah, there was a bit of a delay where they had to be sent to Mexico to be disassembled and reassembled. That was a bit of a delay, but we got it done. We got it done. We had the renovation of the bus garage that occurred, again, with a joint effort, all of the community here together. And we've done that in challenging environments. I mentioned about the cuts. That was my worst day as a board member, when we had the budget crisis and the cuts that had to occur. And then obviously the COVID situation. I wanted to address one thing here with respect to meetings. If there's a theme here of what I'm trying to say, it's about getting together here with the community, working together. When I first started on the board, public comment was discouraged. In fact, it was minimal. This board took it upon itself here from which to have a public comment portion that is probably greater than what you would see in any district here in the state of Ohio, before the meeting starts or gets into full force and afterwards. Sometimes it can be hard, but I think that's something that needs to continue because when we're talking about resolving issues, hearing about what it is we need to resolve, there's so much more that we can accomplish working together as opposed to being divided. So now it's about focusing here on the future. As I mentioned, we already have great students. I'm looking for, we've gone through these challenges. We are going to get past COVID, and I'm looking forward to what it is that this district does here in the future. And one final note, I just want to say, I love the emphasis on writing. Mr. Noble scholarship here, what we found here about focusing on writing and how much kids learn here from that. Great job of what's being done. And I can't wait to see what our students do in the future. So thank you so very much for me boring you here tonight, and to be a part of this truly great organization, and to work with fabulous members of the board and a fabulous community and fabulous kids. Thank you.
So I wanted to circle back around in my report to some of the questions from last month. So I just picked a couple to focus on. One that was brought up last month was certainly not having a nurse and a need for counselors. So as someone mentioned previously this evening, yes, those positions have been posted, and the hope is to have someone hired over break to start on January 3rd. It looks likely for one of the positions. Not necessarily the other two, simply because a lack of candidates applying. But I'm hopeful that those will get filled sooner than later. It was also brought up about Esser Funds. So I'd started to talk about the process at previous board meetings, but some recent uses of these funds have gone to teacher stipends as a result of negotiations, which was approximately, and I'm rounding, so please don't quote this, approximately $255,000 went towards that. We also are allocating approximately $20,000 to our food service department. They're having supply chain issues, and therefore the costs they're finding are skyrocketing to get some of the things that we need. So we are trying to help offset some of the costs for that department. So hopefully that will cover the difference for the rest of this school year for food services. After my meeting with the administrators, I think I talked about also that I had met with some teacher and staff representatives to get their input on what they felt the priorities were to utilize with their Esser funds. And they've kind of fallen into 4 areas: academics, safety, technology integration, and professional development. So certainly we're not budgeting for all of those now, but those will definitely focused areas for the first round. And then a third area that was brought up was COVID updates and calculations. So again, certainly the chart, as I had indicated, to an email that I had received is posted online for our mass metric. So there are 3 different areas that are looked at. The case count for the last 4 days for different zip codes, the case count per 100,000, and then the case count in the district for the last 2 weeks. And again, following the numbers on the chart, each of those areas get points. Those points are averaged, which puts us into a final category and determines where we are with masking. There's also a library update, just so you are aware, sent to me, so I wanted to share it. I'm not going to read all of it, but just a couple of highlights. So the Ashtabula County District Library has been distributing free at-home COVID-19 test kits that were meant to be used in connection with an app that made it possible for them to be guided through a process via telehealth. And of course, get officially documented test results. Is this going in or out, or is this just me? Okay. Can you fix that somehow? Oh. Thank you, sir. Sorry. So they have found that the vast majority of those have not been used in connection with the proctored service app. So as a result, the Ohio Department of Health will be shifting the at-home COVID-19 test kits for public library distribution to an over-the-counter version of the home test kit that is not proctored. And they should have began distributing those as early as the week of November 28th. The important part that I want to note here is that there are 3 critical differences between these home tests and the new over-the-counter tests that they will be distributing. First, the over-the-counter tests do not require a telehealth session. They are simply conducted at home and for personal use. The second critical difference is the over-the-counter tests do not produce a documented result that can be used for travel, return or stay in school, or be released from quarantine in Ohio. And the third critical difference is that there are 2 over-the-counter tests in each test kit. So again, please keep that in mind if you are or know others who are getting the kits from the library, that there are a change in the type of kits that the library is now receiving. Certainly, if you need a kit for your child, the school district does still have access to the home test kits that we can provide families who need a test to return to or stay in school. So I wanted to talk about that because I thought those were some important things to highlight. Additionally, I recently participated in a COVID-19 vaccine parent and families webinar. And I just wanted to share a couple points from that webinar in case you are not aware or are interested. They reported that nearly 1/5 of school-age children have received their first shot, and finding that for school-age children, the percent of effectiveness is 90%. They are also recommending boosters for 16 and 17-year-olds. And lastly, if you're not aware, they are planning for a vaccine for children under the age of 5 years old to come out in early 2022. So I thought I would pass that along. Some other points I wanted to quickly report on: graduation. So we have finalized a date and time for graduation. It will be June 8th this year at 6:30 p.m. That will be held indoors at Spire. United Way, I wanted to thank my secretary, Amy Richmond, for her work on the United Way campaign this year. She sort of facilitates that for the district, and I can proudly say that our district raised $4,547 for United Way. Stuff the Bus, I just wanted to truly thank everyone for their generosity. We were a district that had to bring 2 buses due to the amount that we collected, which was phenomenal. We had 10,273 items, of which I can say Ms. Gustin, Ms. Doherty, myself, and Mrs. Odegaard counted personally to get to that number, and we spent hours counting, but it was a good thing to do to see how many things that we were able to bring in. We were declared the winner at this point. Buckeye School District came in second with 4,450 items, and Conneaut came in third with 3,512 items. So a pretty large, yes, I would say wow as well, yes, a pretty large discrepancy there. So again, that is certainly an attestment to the generosity of the students, staff, and family and community members of Geneva. Again, as I think was mentioned, all of the non-perishables will go to Feed Our Vets and families that stay in Ashtabula County. So again, that's great, as well as the toys. The toys go to both active and non-active military families, but stay in the county. Just an update, I believe Right at School had sent something out, but I had talked about at a previous board meeting that they were sending out a parent survey to see if there was interest in holding their camp over both winter and spring break. There was a certain number of family commitments that they needed to have. Unfortunately, they did not reach that number of 15. So again, I believe they sent out a letter, but I just wanted to communicate again that there will not be a camp over winter break due to the lack of response of interest that they had received. Soaring Eagles. So of course, every month, as you know, I share the Soaring Eagles for the district, and as I had mentioned earlier, there was my first acceptance letter, which still just sort of makes me laugh, and I really do hope that he shares it at the January meeting. But for December at Austinburg, Finn Otero was chosen by Mrs. Dilworth, a second grader. She noted that Finn is a wonderful boy. He is soaring in second grade. He's a great friend to all students in the classroom, helpful, patient, and kind to others. She can count on him to do what she asks. He is responsible, and his class materials are ready, organized, and prepared for the day. He completes his homework and turns it in on time. He is a very hard worker. If he has questions, he raises his hand or visits her table to ask. She says that Finn uses his time wisely and completes his assignments thoroughly. And when he has extra class time, you will find him reading his favorite chapter book. He is not only respectful and thorough in his classwork, he also does a great job at lunch, recess, and specials. She reports that she is lucky to have him in her class. She's very proud of him and that he is a great example of what a soaring eagle is at Austinburg Elementary. At Cork, fourth grader Hudson Simmons was chosen by Mrs. Hall. She reported that Hudson is very kind to his peers. He has a good attitude and sets a positive example for others. Hudson is very creative and likes being an active participant in school and classroom events. At GPS, third grader Victoria Asirno was chosen by Mrs. Carraher. Victoria is always respectful to her teacher and her classmates. She works very hard and earned honor roll for the first grading period. She is always willing to help participate in class and always completes her work. She is a wonderful role model for her peers and is very kind to others. At the middle school, Mrs. Long chose seventh grader Natalie Morales. Natalie follows the SOAR matrix on a daily basis. She works well in groups and goes out of her way to help others. She follows our school and classroom rules and does her best, earning straight A's in every subject this year. Natalie is very respectful to herself and others on a daily basis. And certainly last but not least, at the high school, freshman Trenton Para was chosen by Mr. Balcones, and he reported that Trenton continues to be a positive role model both in and outside of the classroom. He is always respectful, on task, and has a great attitude. So again, congratulations to all of our December Soaring Eagles. I would also like to take a moment to recognize and congratulate our very own SRO, Officer Cooper, for being named the 2021 Chamber Citizen of the Year. So, congratulations. And lastly, this is Mr. Dana's last board meeting. And so I would like to take a few minutes to express our sincere thanks for his 8 years of service on the board. So if you don't know the story, I don't know that it was shared previously, but I was talking with the board members when I had attended open house, and I had shared a story about a teacher who had all these balloons in her classroom. And he said, "Why don't I get balloons?" And so hence, I got him 8 balloons representing each of his years of service on the board. I also asked each of the administrators to write something about Mr. Dana, either a memory or just a thank you or whatever it is, some of their thoughts. So I wanted to share those with you. Mr. Dana, thank you for always taking the time to recognize the students at Austenburg Elementary School. You have made sure all of my concerns about my school were addressed and always gave me your insights to what you see in the district. I felt very comfortable talking to you about anything. My families and I appreciate all that you have done as a board member. Mr. Dana, thank you for your service to the district. You have always put the needs of the students and staff at the forefront of your work. I appreciate your positive attitude and outlook each month. Thank you for your efforts in always further researching topics and issues. I wish you the best with your next venture. I would like to thank you for your leadership that you have shown as a Board of Education member and as a fellow Rotarian. One of my favorite memories was spending time at Eddie's playing air hockey with you. I won't say who won, but your personality and kindness always came through. I'm guessing you probably know who that was. Mr. Dana, you are the best MC, whether it be at the Academic Boosters Adult Spelling Bee or attending these Spencerian community get-togethers. You make everyone feel recognized. You do so with kindness and laughter. Thank you for your years of service and dedication to Geneva schools. In my time knowing you, you were able to bring a lightness to conversations while maintaining a seriousness about school business. Thank you for your service to Geneva Area City Schools. The district is better by having you serve our students and community. Thanks for your years of service as a Board of Education member, as you support the students, staff, and families of the Geneva community. You welcomed me to the district with a smile and handshake while displaying genuine interest in me as a person, asking me about my family and interests as well as my background, creating and reflecting your caring and professional approach to your position. Mr. Dana has always been a leader for the people in the Geneva community. Whether it was emceeing, reverse raffles, or spelling bees, he has always had a sincere passion for supporting the students of the Geneva Area City School District. Mr. Dana, I wanted to say thank you for all you have done for the staff, students, and families of the Geneva school system. I remember when I was first hired, you made a comment to my wife that still sticks with me today. You said to her, "Welcome to Geneva. We are thrilled to have your husband here with us." This meant a lot to me then and still sticks with me today. Good luck with everything you do. Mr. Dana, thank you for your 8 years of service on the Geneva Area City School Board. You have a passion for the history of Geneva, which I was fortunate to have you share. Your legal lens on things forces us to look from different angles when considering and ultimately making decisions. And I want to end with my memory that I was sort of late and last to the party on when I interviewed for this position. I don't know if you remember this story. But I knew I was going to get the question, why Geneva? What did I know about the community? And my brother-in-law, all he talked about for years before I even knew that this position existed or would be available or I would be sitting in this chair, he would always talk about their family vacations to Geneva on the Lake and going to Eddie's and how the burgers are the best, or as he would say, the bomb. And so when I told my sister that I was interviewing for this position, she says, "Matt is going to die. Eddie's. We're going to get to go to Eddie's." And so all I kept hearing about was Eddie's. And so I remember talking about bringing Eddie's up in one of my responses, and the board busted out in laughter. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't say the name wrong. I swear that was the name of the place. Oh, they're thinking, who knows what they're thinking. And so I'm going on and on telling the story. And again, they're laughing, and I'm thinking, I'm really messing up this interview. And then I don't recall which board member it was, but asked me if, I think the question was, did Mr. Dana pay you to say this? And I'm looking very perplexed because I had no idea what they were talking about.
and then they enlightened me the connection of Mr. Dana to Eddie's. So it was quite an amusing moment. So thank you again for your years of service on the board.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and all the nice things that were said, those really belong to my beautiful young bride, Marion. So.
I second that.
May I say something about Richard before we move on? Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Is this on? I know there's a lot of people think I don't need a microphone. You know what, Richard? I am going to miss you. And here's why. I think that you and I are good for society. Geneva is a snapshot of society. When people disagree with someone, they get upset. They get irritated. They don't want to talk. You say hi to them. They put their head down. You and I have always believed in the same end state. We want the same thing in the end. We kind of go back and forth on how to get there. But at the end of the day, you and I can call each other. You call me up. Sergeant Major, what are you doing? You got a chance to talk about this, and we chat on the phone. We have never one time held our personal beliefs on how to do something against each other. And you are a true professional, and I admire you for that. And more so, I've learned a great deal from you because you think differently than me. And I think that's something society fails to do. They fail to listen to people who may have experienced different things or know other things than what you know. So I enjoy our conversations. I enjoy our interaction. I look forward to more of them, and I will miss you sitting up here on stage.
It's mutual. Thank you. Thank you. Sergeant Major, I appreciate you so much. More than you'll know. All of you. I've learned from everybody. Everyone you talk to, you learn something from. And, and I know that's something that, our teachers and staff and administrators that, they instill upon our children. So thank you.
And if I can say something too, I will also miss you on this board. And the things that you have done that have changed the culture of these board meetings are, you've left a lasting impression. You've engaged with the audience. In the 10 years that I came to the board meetings before being on this board and I sat in the audience, I witnessed the change of how you said that it was discouraged to speak. And you've engaged the audience on so many occasions and the students. You encouraged our audience members and families to engage in the process. Your knowledge of that process simplified for the people that were listening to you, I think, encouraged them and made them think that they could change that process. That was never done before. Your vast knowledge of government proceedings and how it relates to our schools and community, we will be missing that greatly because you brought so much of that to this board, and I thank you for that. And the longevity and the experiences that you've had on this board and what you can draw upon to help us move forward, that will be missed. And as I said before, you changed the culture, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Is there any other? Okay, it's time for the final hearing of the public. Is there anyone who has a comment or at this point? Okay, that does it for our meeting. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I would just like to invite everyone who is here to stay for a few moments. We got cake for Mr. Dana, so if you would love to stay and share in that, we would appreciate it.